This is Justice Stats, Reggie Johnson, Eugene Morgan, coming to you from the lovely city of Atlanta. Thanks for coming to the show, whether you are listening or watching. Thank you. Now, this has been a subject that's been burning me here, Eugene. I've been blowing you up about this subject for quite some time. Only because I think sometimes we don't know, like we're looking at history and we're not aware that we're looking at history, right? Like we're looking at it. Sometimes people have trouble. I remember when the internet came around and people are like, this will never last. Who wants to send it? Who wants to send an email? They felt like it was never going to last. And people have trouble realizing that. I think we see the same thing kind of with AI today. AI is going to change. It's going to be a massive change to humanity. And I don't know sometimes if it lands in the moment because, you're going through your day to day. And sometimes you got to see it over time to see what that impact is. Now, what Jokic, and that's what we're talking about here today. Talking about Nikola Jokic for people who can't see the graphic that we have up on the screen here. This burns me up, man. This burns me up. It's so much. Oh, he just scores, or he's just a big man who can pass. Nothing to see here, right? Type stuff. Right. Nothing to see here. Just a guy. This guy. Anytime you have a big man, and if you're a student of the game, you're gonna know this. Anytime you have a big man that averages double-digit assist, or can even get you close to averaging double-digit assists, that's an amazing player.
Right.
That's an amazing player. And when we're talking about Jokic, an example from Serbia, maybe that's what it is. Maybe some of these international players got to do more. We have Wembanyama coming into the league, or came into the league, but hasn't played a game at this time. So you have a little bit more of the international player being boosted now. We have a pretty good. I'm thinking we have Luka, we have Giannis, and they have pretty much been, Giannis and Jokic have been MVPs for like the last few years, right?
Yep, and Embiid as well.
The best player. Right, Embiid. So we count Embiid, we count Giannis, we count Jokic. That's just covering the last few years,
Right.
So Dirk had his day, as an international star. And there's been a few through history, but we're in a very concentrated period now where there's just a lot of them. Tony Parker wasn't an MVP, but he's a great player. Same thing with Ginobili. These are great players. But going back here to Jokic, the disrespect is just something I can't take, man. It's hard. It's hard for me to take. And remember, we were going to do 2 or 3 different subjects before we got to the subject. We already had a couple of the subjects, and I'm reading things, and you're sending me things, and I just couldn't take it. It pushed me over the line. Like, I can't.
Pushed you over the edge.
Right. I couldn't do it because, first of all, and we'll go through a few of his stats here, but let's go back to one of the major ones is a 30, 20, and 10 game. And it happens in the finals, a 30, 20 game in the finals. And people are like, oh, well, they're making excuses and then like big upping their players that they like that are sitting watching Jokic right as we speak.
Right.
So the people that are crapping on Jokic and then liking some other players, no problem liking anybody who you like. But don't confuse that with the stats and what's going on here. Because Jokic right now is beasting. He's a very consistent player. You're going to have to guard him at all three levels. He can kill you. One of those threes that he hit wasn't directly on the line in this game. Was it game 4? One of the threes he hit, he was pretty far off the line on some Steph Curry type stuff there. It's not just something that's not normal. It's just not normal at his position. It's not normal at his size to have that kind of productivity for the team. How has this landed for you as far as the criticism that she's kind of be leveled against him?
I don't understand it. I mean, especially last year because you were talking about stats. I want to look at what he did last year because last year when he didn't have Murray, he didn't have Michael Porter Jr., he had all these guys. He pretty just had a mismatch of guys on that team, right? And I just looked at it. It's crazy. His numbers, you would have thought his points per game would have been just more. He was 27 points a game last year. The year when Michael Porter Jr. and Murray were injured, right? Okay, that's so the assists were down. But if you watch any of those games, how many open shots and guys missed that he was still playing that same style, right? He didn't change. That's the crazy part of it. He didn't change his style of play at all. Like he still tried to get try to get a great pass to somebody, still got good rebounds, still got good shots, but was still trying to get his teammates involved. And you could have said, oh, he could have just been like, I'll be a 30 point game kind of guy that year. And no
Mhm.
one would have batted an eye, but he still played the same way they played this year. And now you see this year when the points are down this year, but the assists are back up. The rebounds are back up because he's got his team. He's got his Robin or with Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. has been back the whole time. So I don't get it, especially like the way he plays. You gotta love the way he plays, right? I mean, he's a pass
Right.
first guy. He and he just he it was crazy. The one time I don't know if you, I think it was the last game or no, it was game 3. Um, and and it was like, and Jamal Murray was trying to get in the ball, and Jokic pointed to, I think it was Bruce Brown, like Bruce Brown, give it, like pass it under, like because he had a better matchup. Like he saw the better matchup. Like he didn't want the ball. It's like even though he had like a small guy on him, he's like, no, Bruce Brown was under the basket, is wide open, throw him the ball, and that's like how I just how can you not get excited when you're watching that guy play and just watching this team play overall. Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, I know we were talking about Mark Jackson had him 5th on his MVP ballot. I mean,
Oh my
and then
god.
the whole Kendrick Perkins thing, and it's like the guy just goes out there and hoops, and the way he's playing in these finals, he's just it's so you don't have to look at the stats, right? You could watch every single game and not look at the stats and realize he's the best player right on both on either team. Right, he's the best player, obviously for Denver, but there's nobody that can match him on the Miami side. And there's nobody. And if you look at even if Boston had gotten in, they couldn't have matched. They couldn't have been able to stop him. So he would still been the best player then. So I'm with you. I don't get it. I know a lot of people didn't want to vote for him for MVP because media they don't want to vote for a guy 3 times in a row for MVP, and I get it. It's fine. Embiid, I think, did have the MVP in the regular season.
Yeah, and he came down the stretch
He-
very it's hard
Mhm.
to argue against Embiid, but
Right,
man, they
but
were so close
mhm.
that if I had a chance to know what the future would hold, it would have been the
Right.
tiebreaker. It would have been a tiebreaker. Like I would have had to give it to Jokic because it's a regular season award, and I'm glad they do it that way
Mhm.
because it's a regular season award. I mean, it's unfair if you get past a certain amount and somebody's got more games to decide who wins versus
Right.
the 82. We all need to have the same amount of games. So I definitely get that. But you bring up such a great point in the sense that he did deserve it from the regular season. So I'll give it to Embiid there, but it's hard for me to I can't, you know what I mean, reconcile that myself. You know me, man. I want Giannis to win it every year. So Giannis is starting the
Right.
year on my
Yeah,
on my
exactly. It's like
MVP
it's
list.
Giannis and everyone can just fill in below. Right. I'm right there with you. And part of it too was we've talked about this before. They kind of obviously they took their foot off the gas towards the end because they had the number
Yeah.
1 seed locked up. They had the number 1 home. They had the home court advantage. There was no, and that's so that was probably smart on them. Like let's rest him. We're good. It's where we're at. No one's gonna pass us on the number 1 seed in the West. So why why bother? And they probably read, like he probably and it's the thing. I don't think he cares about individual awards. Like he seems like
I don't think
he's
he
like
does either.
from just his. I think he wants to submit himself. I think this matters to him right now. Like if he wins the NBA championship, that's the number 1 goal, and then it's like MVP from the all after that. So it's kind of like I remember when I know I'm going to jump to football, but they asked Ladainian Thompson if LT if I remember I never forget this, and it's like oh my god I can never. He said he would not trade his Hall of Fame being in Hall of Fame versus winning a Super Bowl. I was like wow I never. Then Jokic
Do
is
you
like
feel like you feel like most players would? I don't know if that's a tough one for me because one is an individual year achievement and one is
mhm,
a
mhm.
lifetime achievement.
Right,
So
right.
I could see that being 1-1 versus a single season MVP. So if it's a single season MVP versus Super Bowl, get out of here. Give me that bowl, man. I need that chip.
Right, versus yeah, yeah. So I was kind of like, wow, I don't know if I, but I get it, but yeah, it's great that people are finally getting to see him play. I know
Yes, that's
Denver's
a
not
small market team in the
right.
West. You don't really get the time nationally to watch those games all the time.
Yeah, and it's like, and no offense, but if you got Golden State and Lakers, you're probably going to watch that game versus Denver versus the Clippers, or Denver versus whoever. It's like they're not going to be just on everyone's top 10 or top 5 list to watch on the League Pass, right? So, but no, I just it's great that everyone's seeing him play on the stage and he's performing, right? He's doing. That's the great part is like he's performing at expectations or even higher. I was even higher than we than what you were expecting. So I'm thrilled that everyone's gotten to see him. I just think it's funny how these people. It's like you and I have known how great he is, and it's like when
Yeah.
we see all the hate, like, what are you guys talking about? This is what NBA. This is what we love. We love guys like that want to do pass first, and yes, he's averaging triple double, but he's doing it the right way. Like he's not doing it the Russell Westbrook way of getting pissed when some guy passes. Like I remember Westbrook getting mad when he would pass pass the ball to somebody, they wouldn't shoot or the person would pass up, he would lose assist, or someone got a rebound up before he did. Like I remember him. Oh, Jokic does not care. It's like if there's a better shot, that's all he cares about, and he's gonna put this guy's in a position to have a better pass. It's like he's so unselfish, and he's a superstar. What else? What more can we ask for?
I totally agree though. That's not really anything I can even take from that because at the end of the day, a lot of people who know that basketball is a pass game, just as much as a score game, it's a
Mhm.
pass game. The ball has to be rotating. The ball has to be
Yeah,
ball movement is kind of what basketball is. Passing up a good shot for a great shot.
hmm
Stuff like that is what you see in players that are unselfish. You see in LeBron. LeBron came into the league doing that.
right,
So you see great players know how to get the ball, get their teammates involved. That's something Jimmy Butler, and let's go about Jimmy Butler here for a second. In Miami, I don't, I would have never minded Miami winning it all because I think that and Jimmy Butler led Heat in particular this season. They play the game the right way. Like he gets his teammates involved, and when people would come to him after games and say, "Well, you're gonna try to do more," and he was like, "No, I'm gonna play the same game. I'm gonna try to get my teammates involved." You
right,
can't listen. You can't have one guy scoring 40 and your teammates watching him play the entire time. And maybe you get down to the fourth, they're not warmed up, they haven't taken any shots, they haven't got a chance to get into any rhythm because they're just sitting around watching you play
right.
all game. So I can see that. Well, and I'm going to piggyback, or well, let me go through a little bit here first, and then I'm going to go back on a few things you said here, as I have the stats up for our YouTube audience. The his first start, because I think he was drafted 41st. I want to say
You got
41st.
it.
He was drafted,
41st, second round.
and, which is wild now, right? So for all you people who got second round players and don't have first round picks, it's still possible. Get you an MVP out here. He he didn't start his first game until 2015. That was October 28th, 2015. That was 2 points, ladies and gentlemen. Solid 2 points. I think he only played like 3 minutes in that game though. 2016, December 15th, first start, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, plus 15. It's not too horrible. And his first triple double was a year after that. So let's look at that, the way that went. 2015, first game started, right?
hmm
Drafted 2014, so he didn't play in his first game until about a year later. Then he has his first start, which is a year later than that. So we have years in between these. We have a guy just sitting on the bench over here. He's gonna be one of the greatest players of all time. He's just sitting on the bench. 2016, he started, gave him a pretty good stat line there. And his first triple double didn't come to almost a year after, or I don't know if it was a solid year after that. It might be in the same season. No, it was that same season.
Okay.
He had his first triple double, but it was just in 2017, and it was 2013 and 11, 2017. So he was on a trajectory, so to speak. Like he was, some people come in and feel like it's going to happen right overnight. That's why I love like
Mhm.
these type of players like him and Jimmy Butler. Like I love those kind of players, man. Guys who just are kind of maybe journeyman a little bit, kind of working their
Right.
way up. Nikola wasn't that path, but definitely Jimmy had to work for his. And Nikola, as you see, he's drafted, didn't have his first triple double till 3 years later. So you're working your way up. You're working your way up the list there. So I can kind of see that. Um, what is interesting is that I think him and Jamal Murray were coming off the bench around that time. I don't know if either of those players were started. They were hitched
No, they were
their
both. Yeah.
torches to Emmanuel Mudiay, and that didn't really work out for him. I don't know if he's playing or not. Going back to what you were saying, and for people that are in our just listening to the show versus watching the show, there's a stat here I said I didn't even know. Just going through his playoff stats, I got to share it with you. 3-point percentage, 45.5, and he shot 47.4 against Miami this year. That is amazing.
That's amazing.
45.5% 3-point shooter. That's been through the playoffs. And 2023, all year versus Miami, he shot 6 games. He shot 47.4%. Now, this percentage can be a little bit higher because you might not take a lot of threes, but the fact that
He
you
did, yeah.
have
Right.
a player, a center who's shooting in the 40%, a lot of these centers could have took 3 of them and missed all 3.
Yep.
Very, very easily. No prayer of going in. And this is a lot of the historic centers. We look at some of the greatest centers of all time. I don't even know if they could take 2 or 3 shots and shoot 45%. So for a big man, it's an amazing stat. I had to share that stat, man, because it's one of the ones that pops out. His stats in general pop out, but that's one that really pops out to me.
Right. He's taking smart threes versus just having to hesitate and take bad
Yeah,
threes.
those dare to shoot threes, man. He's just standing out there.
Yeah.
And
Right.
when the ball gets back to him, he's like, oh, I'm going to take it. See what happens, I'm going to go back to what you said before about the kind of underrated, the hating on, so to speak, because I would give Kendrick Perkins credit in this. I thought that what he said was absolutely ridiculous and horrible. Because when you say that it was something, I'm going to paraphrase this, but I know it was like race based. I feel like sports is one of the only places that you could have race not be a factor. You're either good or you're not good. I can look at your stats right here. He's either better than people in his position or he's not better.
Right.
What part of his stats here say, oh, it's because we don't get the white guy, black guy stats, the foreign guy, the domestic guy stats. These stats don't break down into the cultural culture war, so to speak. And I think some of these people already have these issues in general. They just attach basketball to it. They just want this. It's a conspiracy. They just want this and overlook the guy who won it this year, overlook the guy who won it with Giannis and crap on him, overlook Steph Curry winning it and crap on him, right? When you go look at it, how many white guys have won MVPs? So that was an asinine statement, and I believe he got roasted justly for it. And I think that he has turned it around in a sense. Like he started talking about, he's like one of Jokic's biggest fans right now. He's on the Jokic train. Him and Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson's leaving him off. Now, the Mark Jackson was disappointing as well, only in the sense of you commentate and you've coached, you commentate,
Right.
you've played. What's wrong with what? And the guy who won the last 2 years, you don't even give him a look. He's not in your top 3 or 4 the look this year. So stuff like that is disappointing. We look at players who turn around and commentate. And I like to listen to these guys, the Draymond Green, the Paul Georges of the world. Gilbert Arenas, I think, was one of the earliest people to do this. Agent Zero was doing stuff like this when he was playing. So I like listening to their perspectives. I like listening to how they see the game, because the way they see the game is way different than they forget more basketball today than I've ever known. So I have absolute respect in no matter who the player is. It could be the worst player in the NBA. This might hurt some people's feelings for people who are at home who's feeling like they could just jump in and do it. There's only been 4 to 5,000 players that have ever played in the NBA in
Right.
humanity. That's it. Since the NBA was around, 4 to 5,000 human beings have played in the NBA. So even the worst player in the NBA, he knows more about basketball than you and me.
Right.
He knows more about basketball. Like he could be the worst guy, the absolute last guy that's playing. So they seeing players as player empowerment, since so people like Kendrick Perkins can come on and people like Paul George can have his podcast and stuff like that and have some measure of success. I'm happy for that. And I think they bring another perspective. At the same time, that doesn't mean they're not wrong. At the same time, it doesn't mean they're gonna pick every game right, you know? So once you bring yourself into that space, the commentating space, and you're just the speculative space, I take it down a bit, but there's still some deference there to players who have played the game. Your thoughts on that?
Mhm. Yeah, well, and plus, especially the Mark Jackson one, like that was Mark. Mark played that way, was a pass first kind of guy, right? I
Yes,
mean,
absolutely, he was.
right, and
He
that's
was
the thing
great
is
in
like,
New York City, I want to say.
yeah, it's like, wouldn't you would, I thought you would gravitate towards this guy, right? Because Mark played kind of in the older style of basketball. Jokic kind of plays that old style of basketball, the pass first, rebound. He's obviously, we know he's not a good defender, but he's not a bad defender. Like I'm not seeing like teams seek him out to, they're not
Yeah,
trying to hunt him like when teams were obviously trying to hunt Luca for many, many times. Or now when I know we're going to talk about CP3 in our next segment, but people are starting to hunt him, right? So yeah, I mean, look, if he wins the NBA, even if he's shown enough, like unless they just blow these next 3 games, which I don't think they
mhm,
will, he's
yeah,
proven
it really
that
is.
he is the best player right now in the NBA. So those talking heads can talk all they want, but he's the best. He has the belt right now. If he, like I said, if he wins tomorrow, that's it. He has the belt. The belt's his. He's the best. He's the best player in the world right now.
Yeah, he's gonna have the last laugh because he's gonna be Finals MVP if he wins. This show is being recorded days before the show is played, so he's gonna have he'll be the Finals MVP. I'll take that MVP over regular season MVP any day. That
Right.
usually be
Oh
huge.
yeah.
You did pretty good for yourself that season, so um, we'll get more chances to talk about stuff like this. I appreciate you guys taking some time out to tune into the show. We'll definitely do much better next time, as we often try to do. Check us out: YouTube, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. See you next time.